Hello, I am Joshua P. Warren, and this is Joshua P. Warren Daily. And I've got one word for you: hobgoblins. Have you seen this freaky creature? Well, I have received an email from a woman who is adamant that she saw one of these hobgoblins, and she's been trying to get this story told for a long time, get the story out there. She tried to get in touch with Art Bell, couldn't get through. Well, guess what? I'm about to read, finally, her story for you, and it's going to be really interesting to get your feedback. I also have an email from a man who says that he used a wishing machine in order to manifest a Bigfoot encounter. Would you do that? Would you like to have that? I'm going to read those and even more email listener feedback to you. Trust me, these are some weird stories, especially when you get all the details. But listen, first off, an update. This has been an exciting weekend for those of us in the UFO research community, because of the New York Times breaking the piece that's been covered by all these other media, in which a Pentagon advisor has said that soon the Pentagon will be disclosing some new information, and that this advisor has said we have, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this earth, end quote. So we've all been really happy about this, waiting to see what in the world they're going to say. But guess what? Here's what also happened this weekend. We all got stung. Yeah, we got a sting, and here's why. It's because of a tweet that came from Senator Harry Reid's Twitter account. Now, Senator Harry Reid has been the leading politician. I mean, he's retired now, but when he was in office, he was the Senate Majority Leader, and he was the leading politician who inspired all of this research into UFOs and got the funding and the permission to create the ATIP program, and worked with Luis Elizondo there as the director. Senator Harry Reid, since retirement, he's in very poor health. He's 80 years old. He is struggling with cancer. And he has been on television here in Las Vegas numerous times, talking to George Knapp about why the American people need to know the truth about what's going on. So he's been hailed as a hero, as a champion, as a man who is on his way out of this life, who is doing the right thing. He is the guy who wrote the famous letter to the Department of Defense in 2009, and you can find the PDF of this letter if you go to joshuapwarren.com and scroll down on the homepage. I'm talking about this letter in which he is talking about the ATIP program, and he says a lot of things, including, since the Advanced Aerospace Threat and Identification Program, ATIP, and study were first commissioned, much progress has been made with the identification of several highly sensitive, unconventional aerospace-related findings. Given the current rate of success, the continued study of these subjects will likely lead to technology and advancements that in the immediate near term will require extraordinary protection. He goes on to ask for all this extra security and classification. And then another thing that I find interesting, he says, exotic technologies likely involve extremely sophisticated concepts within the world of quantum mechanics, nuclear science, electromagnetic theory, gravitics, and thermodynamics. Given that all of these have the potential to be used with catastrophic effects by adversaries, an unusually high degree of operational security and read-on discretion is required, etc., etc. Okay, we're talking about the guy who championed ATIP, who's on the news talking to George Knapp about how that we need the public to be informed about what's going on here. He was on the History Channel's program, Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation, just last Saturday night, this past weekend, talking with Luis Elizondo. Oh, praise for doing such a great job, which I'm sure that was recorded months ago. But guess what now has happened, folks? Around Thursday, Friday, the New York Times broke this story saying that this Pentagon advisor has gone public and said we have off-world vehicles not made of this earth. And Senator Harry Reid appears to have done a 180, and he tweeted this: I have no knowledge, and I have never suggested the federal government or any entity has unidentified flying objects or debris from other worlds. I have consistently said we must stick to science, not fairy tales about little green men. And everybody has gone, what the fuck just happened? Okay? What the fuck just happened? This guy supposedly tweeted this. Now, of course, my immediate reaction was to tweet back and say, okay, well then tell us the truth. What are you talking about in this letter? What have you been talking about? What is this thing we're all supposed to know? Why have you been going on all these UFO TV shows and saying the people need to know what's happening? What, that one of the Twitter responses I got was from Ion Source, and he goes, ow, he just little green mend us. Like that's shooting intellect down. That is a step back into the ridicule protocol. We have all of these esteemed military people, including people on active duty, who have gotten the guts to get up there and tell their story on camera. And everybody thought, well, Harry Reid is a major force that's got our back. And now what he's doing here is undermining and demeaning all of that. In fact, there was another tweet that was posted by someone named Evan Shupke, and he says, what do you want your legacy to be, Mr. Reid? The senator who gave millions to his billionaire friend to study nothing? Or the senator who told the truth about ET contact? Younger generations deserve better. And this is such a disappointment. And we're all trying to figure out, well, what's happened here? How did this guy appear to go from being more or less, a dying elder statesman who is trying to do what's right and give information to the public that we deserve to know, to putting out a statement like that? Now, look, before we go just attacking him outright, though, for doing a 180, let's think about the options. Option number one is that he didn't actually write that email. It may be that this New York Times post really was a whistleblowing post and really was not intended to come out, when it did, where somebody says, listen, we have off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. That may have been not part of the plan. And so suddenly, they're scrambling to do damage control here. And again, Harry Reid, he's in rough shape. And so I don't even know if he actually sits down and tweets anything, right? All I can tell you is this came from his account. And the wording is awfully cliched, especially for a guy who is so intelligent and nuanced. And so there is a possibility that he didn't even tweet this. Okay, that's number one. Number two is it may be that he was threatened in some way, that somebody came to him and said, listen, we're not ready to go that far, and you're pushing this way too much right now. It's an election year. We have enough shit going on. We don't need this in the mix. So basically, if you would like to keep your health care, or if you would like for your family to get their benefits when you finally die, maybe you should change your opinion on this, right? So obviously what I'm talking about is he was pressured or bribed. I mean, that'd be another possibility. Then we have the possibility, the third one, that he worded it very, very carefully. And this is the weirdest option. That, okay, perhaps when he said, I have no knowledge and have never suggested the federal government or any entity has unidentified flying objects or debris from other worlds, what he means is this is way more bizarro and advanced than that. That we're not talking about ET traveling here from another world necessarily. We might actually be dealing with humans or human technology from the future that is coming here to their past. Now, again, I told you this is the most bizarre option. But if this was worded very carefully, then what he may have been hinting at was that it's not from a quote, another world per se. It's from our world. But either they're from the future or they're from another dimension of our world. And obviously when we're talking about other worlds, and that's a quote from his tweet, other worlds, that could be the crux of sort of legally and technically and literally defining what he means by this. Then, of course, I guess there's always another option that this has all just been some kind of bullshit campaign. I don't believe that because I don't think the whole thing rests on the shoulders of any one person. You know what I mean? If you can discount him, you can discount Luis Elizondo, but can you discount every single pilot who's come forth? Can you discount the video footage? Can you discount the radar information? No, so no one person is the driving force behind all this, especially now that it's gotten such publicity and so much data has come out that is unquestionable. But it's just a big disappointment. That's what it is. And so I don't know how much it means in the long run, but this is just another step in the drama. We have this super exciting weekend where we're expecting some new news to come out, and this is like a super disappointing thing that just so happens to coincide with it. So, well, what do you think? What do you think's going on in this hall of mirrors called disclosure, right? I don't know. So anyway, that's where that stands right now. I will keep you updated if anything new happens, and I want to make sure you understand. I'm going to repeat this. I said it in my last podcast. I only have a certain amount of e-newsletters that I can send out per period. So I don't send out an e-newsletter every single time I post an update. So don't rely on that if that's what you've been doing. Uh, to listen to this show and make sure you find out when every little breaking show comes out, follow me on Twitter at Joshua P. Warren. It's very simple, super to do, okay? Super simple, easy to do. And when you get on there, I mean, you can just sign up and just say, I want to follow one person, Joshua P. Warren. And you can even set it up to get a text every time I send out an update. So you can do that. Or if you go to joshuapwarren.com and click the link to this podcast, then you can also subscribe through different means like iHeart or Apple platforms, Stitcher, etc. And that way I can keep you updated as this news breaks. So anyway, that said, let's get on to some of the strange emails that I've gotten. I'm looking forward to reading this one because I think this is going to make this lady happy. She has been trying to get this story out for years, and she's so enthusiastic and so adamant about what she experienced that she says I could use her full name. She gave me her phone number. I mean, like, she says, do whatever. I just want this out there because I want to know what the hell, what the hell happened to me. But I'm actually not going to give her full name, even though I could. Her name is Kathleen, and she had an experience in California. And I'm just going to do my best to read her email to you. Now, this is just a raw email, so there, may be some little typos and stuff that I have to work around as I read this, because it's a bit on the lengthy side, but that's pretty good, because you need a lot of detail when you're trying to analyze something like this. So here is Kathleen's email, finally delivered to you, a big audience. Here we go. Everything I'm about to tell you took place in a matter of minutes. Also, I must admit, had there not been another human present to verify everything I'm about to tell you, I would, for the rest of my life, questioned and doubted what I experienced with my own two eyes. My 10-year-old son and I had recently moved into what appeared to be a normal 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. Front room, dining room, kitchen, family room, 2-car garage, on a quiet little court and a quiet little town called Milpitas, which was snuggled right between San Jose and Fremont. So we're talking about California here. Right on the border of the Santa Clara County, Alameda County line. The lady that rented me the house had evicted her son. He was not happy about that. He started terrorizing me and my son at all hours of the day and night, banging on the door, demanding to be let in, saying he still had belongings in the house, which he did not. It soon became apparent that I needed not only a gardener to help with this large property, a babysitter, and now a bodyguard. Larry, my girlfriend's brother, needed a place to stay. We had all gone to high school together in the 60s. So in exchange for free rent, well, I got a gardener, a babysitter, and a bodyguard, as well as a repairman and a painter, LOL. Well, the son who was evicted was very volatile, punched holes in all the walls and doors. So in lieu of a cleaning deposit and or security deposit, we agreed that I would paint and patch the walls. So this one evening, Larry and I put all the furniture in the center of the front room and covered it with sheets. And we started patching and repairing the holes in the wall so we could paint. We'd been working for hours. It was a little after midnight. We decided to take a break. I went into the hallway, entered the first door on the left, which was the bathroom. I then left the bathroom and made a right to continue down the hall, past the door on the left, which my 10-year-old son was sleeping in. The door at the end of the hall was Larry's room. We had been taking the doors off the hinges to repair and or replace them. My door was on the right. Being a female, I had put a curtain rod with thick curtains over my door for privacy. With my left hand, I pulled the curtains to the side, and I let out a blood-curdling scream. There was a creature standing on the other side of the door. He was a little taller than my waist, about the size of a 5-year-old. His hands were clenched in fists on each side of his head by his ears. He was staring at me as if to dare me to enter the room. His hair was dark but sparse. I could see his leathery scalp like the texture of an old worn football. He had a thick leather strap across his chest like a sash. No shirt. His teeth were yellow. His eyes were squinty and yellowed. His ears were pointed. His pants looked like they were made of deerskin. He had moved away from the door, back about 6 feet to the middle of the room, and I didn't see him move. He was just in front of me 1 minute and then about 6 feet away the next. My glance continued towards the bottom of his pants. It was then that I saw he had no feet. It was a mist. He was disappearing from the feet up right before my eyes. I let go of the curtain, ran back down the hall towards Larry. I can't even imagine the look on my face. But before I could say a word, Larry says to me, "You saw the little shit, didn't you?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What did you see?" And he described it to a T. Everything I saw, he said he saw it run from the dining room down the hall. "Why didn't you warn me?" I said. "Why didn't you tell me?" He says, "I thought I might have been having some kind of 1960s acid flashback." LOL. We lived in the house for another couple years. Never saw that creature again, but we heard him constantly. You could hear his footsteps running from the garage, through the dining room, down the hallway, towards the master bedroom. I gave him the master bedroom. Took my bed, put it in the family room. Just used the master bedroom as a dressing room and used the shower and bathroom there. Always creeped me out, felt like I was being watched. Well, you would think this will be the end of the story. But flash forward to 2006. Here they are showing the first Harry Potter movie on TV. I had never seen any of the movies yet. Imagine my surprise when the scene in the movie shows Harry going into the bank in the witches and warlocks dimension, and I couldn't believe my eyes. The creatures that were the bankers was the same creature I'd seen back in 1989 in the house. They were identical. What were they called? Goblins? Well, to be exact, this one was a hobgoblin. These are supposed to be fairy tale stuff, not supposed to be real. I have no explanation, but like I said, had Larry not been there, I would question to my dying day if this truly happened, but I have a witness. Hope you enjoy my story. Have a great day. And that comes from Kathleen. And as I told you, I have her phone number and everything. So, wow, huh? Hobgoblin. You know what? If you look up hobgoblin, here is the Wikipedia definition. It says here a hobgoblin is a spirit of the hearth. And you know what? At first I was like, a spirit of the hearth. I don't even know what that really means. I know what a hearth is. So I was like, is there some other meaning? Nope, it's the same thing. They link it. Hearth is a brick or stone lined fireplace with or without an oven, blah, 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 blah. So a hobgoblin is a spirit of the hearth. So I guess that maybe, I'm sure some of you in England who listen to this show will be like, oh yeah, that means they hang out in your kitchen or your living room or something. But anyway, a spirit of the hearth, typically appearing in folklore, once considered helpful, but since the spread of Christianity has often been considered mischievous. Shakespeare identifies the character of Puck in his A Midsummer's Night's Dream as a hobgoblin. And you can go and, you can read all about hobgoblins on your own. But one thing that's kind of funny is I never got really into Harry Potter. I mean, I've seen several of the movies, but I was pretty much an adult when the Harry Potter movies came out, and so it just never really connected that strongly with me. But I know that there was a little elfy looking thing called Dobby. And they say that the term hobgoblin comes from these two words, hob, which means elf, and goblin, which means a mischievous and ugly fairy. And so if you look at the folklore, there are all these different types of supposed hobgoblins, but they call one a Dobby. So a Dobby is a particular type of hobgoblin, and sometimes they're helpful. It says here, one Yorkshire Dobby lived in a cave and was noted for curing children of the whooping cough. Dobbies could be just as industrious as other hobgoblins and brownies, which led to the expression, quote, Master Dobbs has been helping you, end quote, whenever a person has accomplished more work than was expected. So, look, what I can tell you is I've never seen anything like that myself, but I find it really fascinating that she was saying, like, I saw this thing that was obviously physical enough to freak me out. And the first thing I think of when I hear that description, and this, I may be totally wrong here, was when I was a kid, I did like He-Man and Masters of the Universe, the Mattel product, and they made a really shitty He-Man movie in the 1980s called, I think it was called Masters of the Universe, and there was a weird big-eared creature in that as well that maybe matches what she's talking about here in terms of description. But she saw something that was physical enough that it, she didn't say like, oh, I saw a phantasm here. It wasn't until she looked down at the feet or toward the feet and realized it was a mist that it took on a new meaning. And that didn't change how freaked out she was, clearly. But to me, this is a good example of how that people always think that ghosts, interdimensional beings, spiritual beings, beings that have limited physicality, that they're supposed to look all hazy and translucent. And actually, most of the time, I think they don't. I think they look just as solid as you or I do, and we may actually see these kinds of things, ghostly, interdimensional things, more often than we realize, but we just think we're looking at some kind of odd person, or maybe it's just a normal looking person from the past and you see it and you don't realize you're looking at a ghost, because ghosts do more often than not look very solid. It's kind of like in the movie The Shining. That was on TV earlier tonight. Lauren was watching it. And, when Jack Nicholson finally encounters the ghosts, it's not like they're all hazy, misty looking Casper things. No, to him, he sees them and they just look like normal, regular people that he can even interact with. And that is actually a more realistic way of, like, in The Shining, the storyline almost seamlessly goes from these are real people to these are ghosts. And if it might even take you a second to realize what the hell's happened here, because the ghosts are just presented as other real people in the cast of the story. In this particular case, however, she saw something that was very physical, except for its legs, which were misty. So, obviously, more evidence maybe this was some kind of a hobgoblin, because it's not a fully developed physical present form in this particular environment. I want you to think about that. Have you seen a creature like that? And people give them different names, hobgoblins, fairies, elves, trolls, little people. Have you seen something like that? Feel free to contact me. Go to joshuapwarren.com. Scroll to the bottom. You will find my email address. Which brings me to this other email that I got. And my opinion is that Bigfoot is primarily an interdimensional being. And that has always been my stance, because that I think if we had an 800 to 1,200 pound ape running around this country, and we have Bigfoot sightings in every state of the United States every year, we would have more hair, we would have more dung, we would have more of an impact on the society and the ecological, aspects, the ecology of different environments. Not to mention, probably some bones by now. There have been times where I've gone out on expeditions and I've climbed mountains and trekked out to some pretty damn remote areas, and you sit there on the side of a cliff and you're like, I feel like I'm the only person in the world, and then you look down and there's a beer can there. It's like somebody else has been there before you and done that. So that's why I do believe people who see Bigfoot, but the only way I can reconcile their experiences with the lack of physical biological evidence is to say that Bigfoot, as far as I'm concerned, is usually not a normal biological organism. That it may appear that way, just like a ghost appears like a very solid thing to you when you see it, and then it disappears. And the Bigfoot is more of an interdimensional or apparitional thing. And again, people they have a hard time thinking of an apparition or an interdimensional being as something that looks super physical and appears to have weight and gravity on it and shaggy fur and all. I understand that, but I believe that's the only way we can reconcile this. So here's an email I got from a guy who said that he used a wishing machine to manifest a Bigfoot encounter. Would you do this? I'm going to keep his name. I have all of his information, but I'm going to keep him anonymous for the time being. But he does live in North Carolina. And here is, and this is a pretty lengthy email, so I'm going to edit it a little bit. But anyway, he says, Joshua, I wanted to let you know that your wishing machine worked. I had moved from North Carolina from Virginia 10 years ago. I live in Halifax County. Some years later, I started to hear about people seeing Bigfoot and Dogman around the county and finding tracks. After one went through a woman's backyard, I started driving my car down there to Littleton at 5 in the morning because I figured they were more nocturnal in the summer, but never saw anything as luck would have it. He also told me his profession, which I won't repeat, but anyway, he says, my first actual sighting came about a year and a half after. It was August, and I got this idea in my head that I would go on a hike at Medic Mountain State Park where there had been sightings. I took my Native American flute with me and decided to play some songs in the woods to possibly attract a Bigfoot. Wow! A man after my own heart. Isn't that nice? You know, I played the Native American flute at Death Valley. I have a Death Valley update for you also coming up. But back to the email. So he says, I decided to play songs in the woods to possibly attract a Bigfoot. I had fun, but saw no Bigfoot on the 2 times I went. But I did notice some other things. I saw a teepee-like structure of branches and bent trees, and the second time I had a weird feeling like someone was watching me. Nothing happened, so I forgot about it. About 2 or 3 weeks later, I don't remember the date of the second time of going to the park, I had my first encounter driving to work. On Monday, August 28th, 2017, around 7 a.m., as I was driving, a brown and blonde male Bigfoot stepped into the road and crossed left to right. Exclamation point. Now I'm going to read that again because this could be the biggest moment in a person's life. He said, on Monday, August 28th, 2017, around 7 a.m., as I was driving, a brown and blonde male Bigfoot stepped into the road and crossed left to right. Exclamation point. It had a huge back and tricep muscles, and the hair shimmered as it walked through a beam of sunlight. It looked at me, and it had at least 2 large canines in the mouth as it opened it, looking surprised. It glided across the grass smoothly, and turned again, and we stared at each other. Now listen to this, folks. This is really weird, what he's about to write here. He says, I was hit with some infrasound as I felt weird afterward. It was the most incredible thing I had ever seen. So I always wondered if it was due to me playing the flute, and he said this was probably 30 miles from the park but in the opposite direction, or if it was a coincidence and the Bigfoot was going to be there anyway. I guess I will never know. Okay, so he breaks his story at that point for the next paragraph, but let's just pause for a minute. Wow, huh? Like, what would you do if you saw that? If you saw what you believed was an actual Bigfoot lumbering out, shimmering in the sunlight, you see its teeth, you feel weird like you've been hit with some infrasound. What a day. Here's what he went on to write. He liked that apparently because he wanted to experience it again. So he says, I had been going back to the park over the next 2 years and 3 months and heard trees crash and such, but never actually saw anything again until I used your wishing machine. I put in that I would have a peaceful Bigfoot sighting at Medoc. I had probably been back there over 100 and some times since my first sighting and never saw anything. But this time, it took just 3 weeks to work. I knocked on trees, played the flute, and I started hearing brush crack across the creek, but figured it was just deer or something. I was about ready to go, and then I heard something running by. Something big, like a deer or a bear, to my right. A few minutes later, I saw the side of something jet black hiding behind a tree at my right, maybe 60 feet away. It could not fit totally behind the tree, and it was extending out a bit, and it moved. I got scared and started walking, trying to keep my eyes on the tree, but as I got up the path further, I could see there was nothing there, and I never heard it leave or climb the tree. As I was almost back to the clearing outside the trail, I heard something trailing me in the woods to the left and to the right, but I could not see it. So, no, I did not have a direct sighting, but a partial one the second time. He went on to say it was like it had sneaked up and hidden behind a tree to see what I was doing. It was a pretty small thing, maybe juvenile. But he says, thanks, exclamation point. I plan on using this machine to see if I can manifest another sighting or lead me to some footprints to cast. I know others who have found prints, but I have not yet. And that comes to me from a man in North Carolina. So, would you like to see a Bigfoot? Really? You know, I can understand why if you saw something like he describes here, that it would absolutely entrance you. And that you would say, okay, I'm now obsessed with this. I want to see this thing again. This is real. I saw something that I thought was possibly a Bigfoot when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I can't tell you today that it was a Bigfoot because now I realize there are so many other options. I was at my grandma's house in the newfound community of like Lester, North Carolina, and the dog started going crazy, and I was out there by myself with the dogs, and I saw some big, tall, dark form next to her shed, and it was nighttime, so it could have been a bear. If it was a bear, it was standing up, but you know that's not unheard of. Maybe it was something else phantasmal. I don't know, but so I just have to dismiss that because I was 4 or 5 years old. So I can't say that I've seen a Bigfoot. But if I saw one, and especially like he's talking about broad daylight sighting like that, then yeah, I would be obsessed with pursuing that and finding the truth. But this is it's a great example of why that when you're in the field, if you're an investigator, you should have some type of a radionics device with you. And you know, I've been talking about this that it's actually kind of unfortunate, but the truth is, we get thousands and thousands of orders for wishing machines all the time. And one that we have offered is called the Model Field X, which is the field machine that you take out if you're doing an investigation and you want to manifest a Bigfoot or a ghost or something along those lines. But it's the most time-consuming machine to create. It's a battery-powered wishing machine that's small and compact and durable. So Dr. Mulder has decided to discontinue it. And so it's only going to be made for a few more days. So if you are somebody who wants to have a portable, battery-powered durable, compact wishing machine, then this is one of your last chances. And I know I'm going to get so many emails in a week from people saying, can't you just make one more for me? Nope. Nope. I cannot. This is it. So go to wishingmachineproject.com, wishingmachineproject.com. On the homepage there, you'll see a link on the bottom right side that says something along the lines of click here for the portable, Model X device. And if you click that, you can learn about it. And then if you want to order it, you'll be one of the last people on earth who ever gets to have one of those. And that would be a perfect device for a man like this to have. Me, would I go out there and try to manifest a Bigfoot? Well, it's certainly possible, but it sounds kind of scary, doesn't it? To be out there in the woods and have something like that appear. I mean, if your imagination is good enough to have something 8, 9, 10 feet like that appear, yeah, I'm not sure I would want to do that, to be honest with you. I guess I would, of course I would, but it'd be scary. It'd be scary. Hey, here's another email. I did this whole podcast, of course, about Death Valley, and I have received a number of emails from a gentleman named Alan who lives in California. A lot of California energy happening right now, wouldn't you say? And here was his first email that he wrote to me after hearing about my experiences in Death Valley. He was telling me I need to go investigate the Golden Canyon. And his email says, Golden Canyon in Death Valley is located between the Furnace Creek Ranch area where you stayed and the Badwater Basin, the lowest point in Death Valley. It is located on the east side of the road you travel to reach Badwater. There should be a paved parking lot where travelers can park off the highway. There should also be a road sign pointing to its location. If this is the place, or actually he says, if this place is what I think it is, I would think your instruments will go crazy. Just what you have been searching for. After what I witnessed there, and if it's still active, beware. If the original mushroom rock should become visible, do not touch it. I had a gut feeling that told me not to touch it, but I was not told what the results would be. I suspect I would have been stuck back in 1956 or earlier. Not a pleasant thought or place for me. I would think maybe not so good for you either. Sir, what I've relayed to you is the truth. No fantasy about this location. Beware if you go there. Now, I know that may have sounded a bit confusing. You're like, huh? What's he talking about? Mushroom rock? My understanding from the subsequent emails is that in the early 1970s, Alan went to this area called the Golden Canyon. And at that time, everybody went there to see some kind of famous, like, mushroom-shaped rock. But he had read that a big chunk of the mushroom rock had fallen off, so it didn't look like a mushroom anymore. But when he got there, it actually did look like the mushroom again. And there was no evidence of anything falling off of it. So that, combined with a lot of other weird vibes and visions he got, made him think that he was actually looking back in time at that spot and seeing the mushroom rock as it was in the past, because it looked still intact. Now, is that weird? Hell yes, it's weird. Everything I talk about's weird. But I think you at least understand where he's coming from. So he told me in subsequent emails, like, you're interested in time travel and time warps and all that, and this is some kind of a time warp portal location, is basically what he's been saying. and that you got to be careful there, because when you go there, you might be able to not only see the past, but you might get trapped in the past. And then there are stories about people in various parts, especially of the southwestern United States, who have just sort of walked into one of these portals and gone poof, vanish, right? They disappear. So I guess the next time I'm in Death Valley, I'll be heading there. Weird stuff, huh? Isn't it interesting that I get all these strange and amazing emails? There is so much happening this month in general, though. You know, I did a whole podcast about the one-on-one personal VIP tour that I received of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory near Pasadena, California last year. Corby Waste took me all around the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which has an extremely rich history. And that was a fun day, but I guess certainly the highlight would be that we were able to be some of the last human beings to lay direct eyes upon the Perseverance Mars rover, which is the first rover that is being sent to Mars that will actually be able to basically drill down, take some core samples that will eventually be sent back to Earth so that we can see if there is evidence of some kind of microscopic life or who knows what on Mars. And you know, if some people are not impressed by that, but to me, I think to myself, I got to see a machine that was basically completed that is going to go off to another planet, and I'm one of the last people on Earth who's ever going to see this. Like, once it blasts off, in order to see that machine again, you'd have to go to Mars, right? Which I doubt you're going to do that. It's kind of a mind-boggling concept. Well, if everything stays on schedule, they are going to launch that thing on July the 30th. So that's coming up pretty soon, right? What are we talking about this week? Thursday. Thursday, July the 30th is 2020 is when they are supposed to launch that thing from Cape Canaveral. And let's just hope it goes well. If it doesn't, they do have some other options, apparently, for other times that they can launch it. But you might want to put that on your calendar if that's of interest to you, is, you know, seeing this thing launch to Mars, which might be the first NASA-oriented creation that documents life off of our planet. And, you know, in general, oh yeah, this is something else that I wanted to mention. I get so many emails that I try to address. Like, if I get a bunch of emails about one topic, I just try to address it here in the podcast. I have gotten tons and tons of emails from people who have been really interested in night vision technology. They want to go out, especially like nowadays, there's way less to do than there used to be because of all this COVID-19 stuff. So everybody has to stay more restricted. And a really fun thing to do is to be able to step outside at night and look at the sky through a good pair of third generation night vision goggles. And a bunch of people have been contacting me saying, well, what do you recommend? You know, where should I get some third gen night vision goggles? Well, that's an easy one, because over 10 years ago, I started the Paratemporal Night Vision Company along with Mobius. And what we do is we find the very best night vision out there, and we field test it specifically for paranormal research to make sure it's got all the specs that you need for UFOs, for ghostly phenomena, for cryptids, And if you just go out there and you buy a brand new pair of night vision goggles or whatever, then you might be spending way too much money and you might get ripped off. So we don't sell new stuff. We buy used stuff. Sometimes we refurbish stuff. We put a warranty on it. But the main thing is we test everything out and make sure that it works properly. So if you want a pair of third generation night vision goggles or monoscope or whatever you want, you can just contact us and tell us what your intended use is, and we'll work with you on a case per case basis. And we'll try to find a pair that meets your needs. And then, we'll make sure that you get the best thing at the best price. Night vision goggles remind me a lot of a car. You know how they say you buy a brand new car and it smells great, and then you drive it off the lot and now you've lost 60% of the value? Same kind of thing with night vision goggles. A lot of times you'll buy a brand new pair, but now, you can get a pair that somebody used for a week for 60% less. And so our goal is to try to put a pair in your hands. So if you're interested in getting some good third generation as well as customer service advice on how to use them, how to record through them, all that kind of stuff, you can go to paratemporal.com if you want to, paratemporal.com. But if you go to that website, you're going to have to allow the launch of, I guess it's some kind of Adobe software. And because when we first built the site, pretty much all the browsers would allow that to launch. So your site may or may not allow that to launch. So you're going to have to allow that in many cases. But regardless, you can just email me, contact@joshuapwarren.com, contact@joshuapwarren.com. Just say I'm interested in some night vision options, and I'll forward that on to Mobius because he's the expert who handles all that. He has worked on night vision for National Geographic, for Warner Brothers, for Fact or Faked. I mean, he is an expert on night vision. And so I'll forward that along to him if you are interested. So hopefully you'll be sure to come to us at least first and see what your options are, and make sure you don't get stuck with some piece of crap that's basically a camera with a green flashlight on it that you paid $800 for or something like that, right? So anyway, listen, I've kept you longer than I intended to tonight, but this is just there's a lot going on, and I just have a feeling a lot more is going to happen probably this week. I know I have a busy week, so it's important for you to stay updated. If you like this podcast, I hope that you will pass this along to other people, forward it to people, share it, retweet it, whatever, and tell everybody to please go to joshuapwarren.com. There's no period after the P. Number one thing, sign up for the free e-newsletter there at the site. It takes you 2 seconds. When you do that, you're going to get an instant digital good luck charm, and also sometimes I just randomly give out money to people who do that. Go to the Curiosity Shop. We are about sold out on several products. I don't want to tell you what they are right now, because if I do that, I'll create a stampede for those products. But we are about sold out. So if you go to joshuapwarren.com and you go to the Curiosity Shop and you see something you like, now is a damn good time to buy it. But this program, of course, is something that you can follow in numerous ways. You'll find a link there at joshuapwarren.com. This program is called Joshua P. Warren Daily. And I'm going to be giving you a lot of fascinating information over the next week or two, I'm sure. So, go to Joshua P. Warren Daily. And remember that this podcast is always short, it's always free, it's commercial free, it is uncensored, it is independent. And when you click that link, you can subscribe through various means on various platforms, or just follow me on Twitter at Joshua P. Warren, at Joshua P. Warren, and I will usually tweet when a new one is available. So, that is it for this particular edition of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you for staying curious. and I will talk to you again soon.